Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Issa. I have been writing for about 2 years now. I'm a still beginner, I would consider myself, but I help new and aspiring writers write better, more fulfilling stories, and I'll be publishing my first book later this year, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But today's video, we're going to be talking about world building, what it is, why it's important, and a few key pillars to world building that just make the story, your story, so much better. So yeah, let's get right into it. So before we get into the three pillars that I want to talk about today, let's define what world building is. And it's really simple. It's just making a world that your characters and story can live in. And that means that's a lot of different things. That encompasses a lot of stuff. So, but the important bit is that you don't need to have a fully functioning world everywhere. So I'll give you an analogy. Whenever you watch a YouTube video like this, YouTube doesn't download the entire video to your phone. It only downloads the part that you're watching and a little bit before and a little bit after, and then deletes that bit whenever you keep going the video and whatnot. So it's just like how that's like kind of what your goal is for this, is that you don't need at first to have the whole world built. You just need to have that part where your story is taking place, where your characters are living, and the rest, I promise, will actually just come naturally when your characters move around, when new things come around. And a lot of people, before they even start writing, people that are new to writing or have been thinking about writing, the world building is actually the easiest part because they typically make the world before they make the story and the characters. That's exactly how I started. I had made the world and then the story. And that is how Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings. The world was already, he had already written everything about the world, then he wrote the story and the characters and whatnot. A Song of Ice and Fire, George Martin did not do that, but he's a very atypical author. But even if world building does not come naturally to you for whatever reason, that's totally fine. It's really simple and easy to learn, and you, like I said before, you don't need to have the literal whole world built yet. You just need to have this section that is relevant for your story right now. So stay tuned and let's get into the three pillars that I'll be talking about today. It's not a comprehensive list. These are just three that I think are particularly really interesting and add a lot of depth to your story. So the first pillar is going to be politics. Politics, politics, politics. Every single world that I've ever read, and every book that I've read, like in the fantasy genre, has always had politics playing a massive role in the story. And what I mean by politics, that is political systems, that's nations, empires, republics, the whole everything, right? But the reason why politics is so important is, like I said, motivation. It gives so much conflict and motivation to your characters. It's literally infinite how much content and conflict can come out of political infighting or a war, that there's just so much to write about. It, but for your first novel, or if you're just starting, something good to think about now is just pick one, two, or three countries or states, whether they're empires, republics, democracies, whatever the case may be. Write about a page summary or even a half page summary of all three, and then you can put the characters in whichever one you want. Then you can start building the characters and the story around them. But give the characters a place to live and call home. That's a really important bit. Is that the characters are people as well, like you and me. They're people. They have wants, needs, emotions, feelings, goals, and loyalties. And having a country is a huge motivation factor. It's a huge reason for a lot of characters, for a lot of actions characters take. There's almost infinite examples. One example I'll give you about politics influencing character action is from Wisdom of Crowds. So I won't say much on this because this is the last book in the series, so there might be a lot of spoilers. But the main characters are pretty much the whole series, but especially here, are all influenced by politics. everybody, the entire cast, it's all about politics and what's happening in their political world. I promise, the entire cast is based off that. And that explains all their motives, all the things that they do is literally pretty much 90% of their actions are because of politics. So yes, politics is a very important part of any fantasy story and should be a part of yours. The second pillar for world building in a fantasy novel that I'll talk about today is culture. This one is equally, if not more important than the previous one. Culture is so important. It's a basic intrinsic human experience to have a culture. Every single human being that has literally ever lived has been a part of a culture. So it should obviously be the same for your characters. Even if you don't even do it intentionally, the chances are your characters will all just eventually have a culture. You'll just make a culture accidentally because it's just so intrinsic to being like a person. And culture will play such a significant role in shaping the life of your character. Remember, the life of your character, the culture, what's around them, the world, how the world interacts with them is what drives that story because they respond and take action depending on the world, like their environment. One quick example of how you could combine the politics and culture thing. One culture is very militaristic. Take Sparta for example. One culture is very, more peace liking, political, trade oriented. Take Venice from the medieval era. And of course that these two will be like their natural, this is natural tension here. You have one militaristic culture and one trade dominant culture, and you can see how like they would be at odds with each other. That's conflict right there, just automatically. So even if you haven't even thought about culture or at all, but you've only thought about different nations in your story, the chances are that those nations are just there's some sort of tension there that you can use. So I would highly recommend being intentional about culture and making it unique to every group, every cultural group. Should be like pretty. There shouldn't be a lot of mixing in terms of like everything is just vague and bland. And if you're having trouble with like figuring out like I don't know what kind of culture I should have my characters be or anything like that, just do this. Take your culture that you have now. Let's say that you are French. Take your French culture, slice it in half, and then get Spanish culture and put it on the other half, and then call it something different. I know that sounds super unoriginal, and you're like, what do you mean? That's not unique at all. How is it unique? How is that original? I want to be an original writer. I don't want to I don't want to copy other things. It is original because you made it, and no matter what you make, if you slice and add things to it, that makes sense. Not random things, but things that like are more organic feeling. But everybody has their own style as a person. You have your own style, even if you don't know, like you're not aware of it. You do have your own style, so you'll just put your own style to whatever you make. So I promise you, it's okay. You're not being unoriginal or you're not copying anything. You're just using inspiration. So just take the culture that you have now and then combine it with something else that you know of in the world. So for example, I could take my American culture and combine it with Canadian culture or Mexican culture and make a new culture from it and put it in the story. Or I could take aspects from my culture and aspects from Chinese culture, aspects from German culture, whatnot. And the best part about this is that since we live in 2026, we can look at history and see the dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands of cultures that have existed. So I can take from Roman culture, ancient Greek culture, ancient Chinese culture, anywhere. So can you, and you should, especially if you're having difficulty kind of piecing together what your cultures in your story should be. So, but the most important thing is to make sure that you're intentional with it. That's really the important bit. Is be intentional with it, and it can really come off on the page whether or not you are intentionally making these cultures. The third and final pillar that I'll be talking about today is similar to the culture. That is religion. Religion is one of the best ways to add a character or several characters that are super driven because of the religion. you can add so much depth to your story within a religion. For example, one of the biggest mistakes, actually, no, the biggest mistake that I think Joe Abercrombie made in the first Law series is he did not give the Union a religion. The people, it kind of like felt weird in a way. Like, how can this advanced, civilized society not be religious at all? There's like no religion in the Union at all. It's like crazy to me how it just felt weird. It felt kind of hollow for the Union not to have a religion. It's still my favorite series. I'm just saying that he kind of missed an opportunity there, in my opinion. But George Martin, though, every culture that he has, there's a religion to it as well. I think George Martin does religion probably the best I've seen in any fantasy story because everybody is driven kind of by the religion. I mean, take Stannis Baratheon for example. I gotta have his poster right up here. His whole thing is the religion, like not the reason that he's does what he does, but like a huge part of his story is about the religion. A huge part of the legitimacy of the crown in Game of Thrones is about the religion. So for you and your story, you can make infinite possibilities with this legitimacy, motivation, uh, the drive of like the not the characters but the general populace as well. That's something that George Martin does excellent. I know I'm talking a lot about George Martin, but I just think he does religion particularly good in his stories. But it gives like the whole world so much more depth. So that's why it's so good for world building because it feels like a real world, you know? Like the Union not being religious is just not realistic. It just isn't like human. It's just not realistic. So I highly recommend that you at least two. One is okay. You can get away with one. Like one religion is like perfectly fine, but two would be pretty good, especially if only if I mean there's like another very distinct group of people that you're not talking about. So for me and the novel I'm writing right now, there's only one like block of people, like one continent of people. So there's one religion for the most part, like one big religion. So one is fine per like big group of people, or if it's like a global religion in your story, you can really get away with one religion. That's perfectly fine and normal. I would recommend that if there's too wide of a distance and gap between different people that they have different religions or at least different like interpretations of the religion, like different denominations, whatnot. And that could be another point of tension in your story is that there's a religious war. Perhaps you have one side of the religion says I want it this way, the other says no, this is the way it should be. Like there could be a lot of tension there with that, which also goes into politics and culture as well. You can really tie that all together. So yeah, that's my third point, and I highly recommend adding at least one well thought out religion. I would say take about a half page to a page on this one because probably closer to a page for the religion because it is kind of an important part, and religions can be very complex. You don't have to make it complex at all. You don't have to like make a whole scriptural book for your religion and your story. Just like kind of showing like the temple, what it's called, what the priests are called, what the basic beliefs and tenets are. That would be perfect. So thank you guys for watching. That was my three basic pillars for world building. If you are either new to writing or haven't started your novel yet, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Thank you very much.